mean, it's cool, right? So there's a book published in 1970 called The Physical Phenomena of Spiritualism by a guy named Carrington. And in that book are the exact instructions for how to do the fire walk. Yourself or to rig it for others. And nobody gets burned. So it is at least as old a demo as 1907. I thought it was 30. Perhaps it goes back farther than that. But make no mistake, it's rigged. And nobody in their right mind is taking people who have briefly gone through a mental transformation in a seminar room and having them stroll across real hot coals barefoot. Nobody in their right mind. Because you'll be in court your whole life. That's where you're going to be. People are suing McDonald's because they served them hot coffee in a styrofoam cup that says hot coffee. And what did they do with it? Same stupid thing you do when you're in a car that doesn't have a cup holder. You put it between your legs while you drive the car. How many of you have done that? Right? But you are not going to let a bunch of doofuses walk across. It's rigged. So there's a phone demo. I produced cassettes for a guy that used this. It's very common, by the way. Some version of this. His was pretty dramatic. So he's a telephone prospecting trainer, cold call guy, right? Here's how to get appointments. And so insurance company would bring him in. Aluminum siding guys would bring him in. Doesn't matter. And here's his demo. So he would sit on stage with a phone, a real phone, a phone, and have a white pages telephone directory. Google it. And either he or the client, the head of the insurance company, whatever, would pick somebody at random out of the audience, and then they would have that person pick somebody else at random out of the audience, and they would come up on stage and they would take the white pages. There's no force, by the way, because the trick wasn't in the directory, and they would pick 3 names and phone numbers out of the directory, and a phone hooked to a speaker. He would cold call them and book appointments for whatever salesperson, kind of aluminum siding, life insurance, whatever, right there on stage in front of everybody, working without a net. And everybody would then stampede and buy the script book and the audio cassettes of the calls. It's a powerful demo. Of course, the calls are all pre-recorded. He's practiced to the point that he hits the empty spaces on the tape just right. The phone triggers the recording. If it's used twice in a row, it triggers the second recording. And if it's used 3 times in a row, it triggers the third recording. Only way you screw that up is if the tape jams, because this is in the days of cassettes. Okay? Happened once that I know of. But for the most part, this is flawless. Flawless. Get rich in real estate guys use the same thing. The technology is a lot better. But you will see a get rich in real estate guy demo this actually making a deal on the phone. Call a FSBO. Call somebody in foreclosure. You pick them at random out of this whole stack over here. I'll call them. And I'll get us to the point of a deal contingent upon inspection. No money down. Watch how easy it is. Well, they ain't calling the person you picked at random out of the stack. Not happening. They're either calling somebody in their own office or it's recorded. It's one or the other. The demo is rigged. Okay? Always. So demos are like, what's the law rule? You never ask somebody a question you don't know the answer to. You never do a demo that you don't know the outcome of. And you really want to control it. So when you see a demo, most of these demos are rigged. If you've ever seen right now it's, what is it called, the bullet, I think, but there's been incarnations. So in the Amazing Discoveries infomercial days, the little handheld mixer, and I mean, it's got so much power, you can put a watermelon in there, and you can pour some cement in there, and you can put your shoe in there, and then, and it's juice, right? Astounding. If you ever bought one of those things, Jell-O, maybe, right? So I saw Levy shoot this show, right? He's got this thing hooked up to a power drill motor, which is hooked up to a car battery behind the table. It's all you can do to hold it. Right? When you runs off a flashlight battery, demo's rigged. Sorry, right? You remember the Amazing Discoveries with the car polish where you set the car on fire? It's a firewalk trick done with a car. That's all it is. It ain't real fire, and the car was coated with something other than that car polish. It's not real, any of it. Now, they don't all have to be rigged. So, Jay's demo, if you've never seen it, doesn't have to do it much anymore, markets by other means. But in the early days, we will fix the way your inbound call is handled at your office, business. Which, by the way, everybody's inbound calls at everybody's offices are handled badly unless you are there either doing it yourself or standing behind them. So while you are here, if you actually have inbound calls coming into your store or office or place of business, I promise you this is costing you a lot more to be here than you thought by the registration fee. Okay? Because it ain't pretty. So this demo done in a room is, and if I'm not mistaken, did we do it the first time with one of my groups? Yeah. So we did it the first time with one of my groups, so if we destroyed the whole room, he wasn't going to get lynched at least. But so every doc in the room has had his office mystery shopped unbeknownst to him and recorded. And 3 calls, so you can't say, well, it's just one bad call. It's 3 calls. All there on tape. And after a big setup, it's now we're going to play some. Well, this doesn't have to be rigged. Not all demos have to be rigged because they all suck. So you actually can let them pick them at random. So he would pick them at random, play it, and it's beyond awful. I mean, it's just horrendous. Anything you can think of that would be bad way to answer the phone and answer questions in a chiropractic office, we're hearing. I mean, well, what insurance do you have? Well, do you know if it covers chiropractic? Well, why don't you go talk to them and then call us back? I mean, this shit. This is what's going on. I mean, it's just cringe-worthy crap. Right? And the beauty is, and I think it continued to happen, after about 4 of those, there's a smartass in the room who leaps to his feet and, of course, says, it may be happening in other people's offices, but it's not happening in mine. Great, let's find yours. And we'll play yours, which, of course, is now worse than everything that came before. Okay? Well, now you could rig this demo, but you don't have to because they all suck. You actually don't even have to listen to them in advance. If there happened to be a good one, it would be okay, but there won't be. There won't be. They're all bad. So you don't have to rig that demo. I've done it with a number of clients when I first did Miracle Air, and I did it with Weight Watchers too. But Miracle Air, not inbound phone now, the sales presentation. So we tape recorded, not role play, real sales presentations. supposedly by their best people in the whole country, picked out of 1,200 offices. They picked them. I didn't pick them. And they knew they were being recorded. And they were still all awful. Unbelievably awful. First of all, you wouldn't know that people work for the same company. I mean, if you looked at the transcripts or you played the recordings one after the other, you would swear these people were with different companies because there was almost no commonality in architecture, let alone content. You know, every presentation has a structure, and then there's meat hung on the bones. The bones weren't even the same, let alone the meat. The length wasn't even close. The answers to the objections weren't the same. Nothing. And all terrible. You could do that demo all day long with any company you wanted to, maybe with the exception of Disney, and not have to rig it. So I'm not telling you to rig them. I'm telling you most of them are rigged. Okay? Most of them that you see are rigged. Sometimes a little, sometimes not so much, but they're rigged. And many times, though, they don't need to be. But the point is, if you can, you want a dramatic demonstration that somehow proves what it is that you do, or your product does, or your service does, in a memorable, sticky way. And whether you rig it or not is entirely up to you. As a preface, when you come back from lunch, and some of you will have seen these clips before, but now I want you to pay attention for kind of a different reason. And with your little gold reference card in front of you, and it's only 20 minutes, the two of them together, you will see you'll see a Houdini demo, and it's actually Houdini. It's black and white footage from Houdini. And it's his straitjacket escape. But what's important about it is it's done hanging upside down from his ankles from a crane far above the street. And so it's the same straitjacket escape you would do on a stage, which his brother complained about. There's an episode of Boardwalk Empire where Hardin has performed, Houdini's brother, and he's done the straitjacket escape, and now he's up in the VIP suite with some people afterwards, and they're all talking about not what he just did, but they're talking about Houdini doing the straitjacket escape, hanging upside down and dropping in the water off a dock, and every other way he does the straitjacket escape. And a rather testy, annoyed Hardin finally says, "It's the same damn trick," which it is. In fact, Houdini says it's easier to do it hanging upside down from a crane because I can't see what you're doing. If I do it on stage, you can see what I'm doing. If I'm 50 feet in the air, you can't see nothing, except I got out of it, right? So it's actually, if you're not bothered by heights and hanging upside down, it's actually easier to do it up there. So you want to think when you do your demo, how can I make it easy? Not hard. So you see the Houdini demo, which is very cool. And you'll see there's a reality show called Pitchman, and there's two great demos. We've condensed them, so you're not seeing all the run-up much to them. But there's a great demo for gel insoles that you put in your feet, and you're going to see two demos for these things. And the important thing to understand about those demos is they actually prove nothing about how this is going to work as a gel insole in your shoe, worn all day. They prove nothing. Zero. Yet, in people's minds, they absolutely prove how fantastic these products are. So Demos can be illogical. If you critically analyze them, they can be illogical. And yet, they can be extremely powerful. And you want demos. Do one more, and then do you mind you doing your 15-minute force thing before lunch? Okay, then you got 5 minutes. Get ready. Well, he got what he wanted, right? Okay. 7 minutes. Okay. You had to do change underwear? What the hell is... So hijack number 17 is proof by process or device. So since we're talking about gel insoles, Scholl's figured this out. You'll see the TV ads and you'll see the units in drugstores. So there's all these gel insoles now, but you go and you put your foot in a machine and it customizes, so lights flash and shit. Right? It customizes the insole for you. The insoles are all the same, except for their length. So instead of selling the insole the old way, which if you ever bought these, they had lines on them, and you took a pair of scissors and you cut off the excess amount to fit it in your shoe. They now have more inventory, because they're hung on the rack pre-cut in sizes. The machine knows how long your foot is and tells you which insole to buy. The rest of it's all nonsense. It's not customizing anything. They all have the same amount of gel in them. It's the same insole. However, they're selling for 30% more because you're going and using the machine with the flashing lights. This is not new. Right? So women, guys have never seen this probably, but if you go into Macy's or Saks or any department store that's got cosmetic counters, which are now all licensed out, the department store doesn't run them anymore. Each company basically buys that space for rent plus a percentage. So they're like little mini stalls is really what they are, merchant stalls. At least 4 or 5 of these companies have some kind of gadget, a machine, a thing that tells you move this thing here, and you're a summer or a winter or you're a Zeus or whatever you are, and it tells you what color glop you're supposed to be putting on your face, right? And it's much more authoritative. So Adam will talk to you at lunch about authority. It's much more authoritative than that person telling you. And see, they didn't have and don't have an effective way to prop up the person as an authority. You're marching into a Macy's store kind of at random, and you're going over to the, what's a cosmetic brand? Chanel, thanks. Do they have a gadget? Who's got a, anybody know one's got a gadget? For sure? Huh? Mac has gadget. So, but you're walking in at random, right? And, I'm being drawn over to this. So they can't pre-set up this person who's going to talk to you as the author of a book, and you've seen them in their DVD. And they don't have the way to do that. So they give them this prop that people do accept as authoritative. Because really, any version of the computer says so is now accepted as gospel. That's how people drive up off-ramps. Because the GPS says, right? There's cars coming in another direction. There's a big sign. Every once in a while you see this in the news. And right up the off-ramp, or right off a pier. And she'll say afterwards, well, the thing told me. I was in a car years ago. Bill Glazer used to because he had a car dealer as a private client. He used to get a new one every 3 months to drive. And we're in this whiz-bang, sophisticated Mercedes, and we're driving back, I don't know, from one place to another. And the GPS is telling him what to do. It's talking. And I'm going, it's right over there. I can see, we're passing it. It's right there. I mean, we went around in 3 circles and finally wind up at this thing. I saw it right there. But nope, we're going to listen to this thing. Right? Another time it led us, we're at the Preakness. And we come out of the parking lot, and this thing's telling them where to go, right? If you've ever been to the Preakness track in Baltimore, the backside of this is not in a good neighborhood. Right? This is not in a good place. Well, I guess maybe it was right when they programmed the GPS, but this thing right into a dead-end street. Crack houses on either side. Okay? Motorcycle gang on one side, all out on the street. A bunch of young guys in hoodies out on the other street. And we have the nose of his brand new whiz-bang car parked up against a fence. Right? At which point he says, I'm going to get out and ask. I said, no, you are not. No, you are not. Reverse, 90 miles an hour. Go! That's what we're going to do. But so any version of the computer says, right, works. It works. So the cosmetic and skincare guys have figured this out. Beauty Control first did it with color analysis. Right? Beauty Control is owned by Tupperware, by the way. In diet. So sometimes a diet is built this way. There's some kind of diagnostic thing. Eat by your body type, for example. There's 4 body types. What's that called? You're in that field, you know? You know what I'm talking about, though. It was popular for a while. Oh, yeah, there's blood type, too. Yeah, but there's body type. There's a body type deal. There's a chart with you're a Cro-Magnon or you're a, whatever, and that now you decide, what to eat. Financial guys, they all use this stuff, right? If you sit down with a financial advisor, they got a laptop and they got charts and they plug in your data. Now there's robo-advisors, so people will go do it themselves online, and you plug in the data, and the thing spins around like a little roulette wheel, and it stops, and there's this percentage of it that's green, and there's this percentage of it that's red, and the computer has now told you where to put your money. Okay, because the computer said so. So here's an oldie. Dave, you may or may not remember. So this is from the Edmund Scientific Catalog, which is ironic in and of itself, from 1960-something. And here we have Kreskin's ESP tester, which is a machine that tells you whether or not you have extrasensory perception. All right. Here's the Kreskin. What is this? The spellbinding crystal over here that the mysterious suspended pendulum answers all your yes or no questions. So all you need is one of these to know if your spouse is cheating or your car's going to start in the morning or, whatever. Here's this isn't Kreskin, but here's the, what is this thing? Oh, yeah. This was big for a long time. Here, with this little gadget here, you can prepare your own biorhythm charts. And then you will know what to do on what days based on your biorhythms, because you don't want to be like playing polo on a day that your biorhythms are bad. Now, I point out to you, this is in Edmund Scientific. This is not in stupid people's catalog who live in a mobile home park. This is in the Edmund Scientific Catalog. Okay? So process and device flips switches in people's head. The very fact that you are plugging data into this thing, and it is lighting up, it is spinning, it is calculating, it is doing something. And the very fact that you have a process that you go through to arrive at your recommendation or this flip switches in people's heads. Okay? It does things to them. Because again, they've been hard conditioned to accept this. All right? And so if you can put it into what you do, you want to put it into what you do. A lot of this is based on some version of force. And so one of the things I asked Dave to do for us while we were here is show you a few force examples. And so he is going to do that, and then he is going to cut you loose for lunch, and we are going to reconvene at 1:30. And Dave is going to draw a card and give something away at 1:30, and I'm going to be back a little bit after that. You're up.
All right. Guys, was this an awesome morning or what? I mean, come on. Really unbelievable stuff. All right, raise your hand if you believe in ESP. Raise your hand if you believe in ESP. Okay, raise your hand if you can at least spell ESP. Okay, perfect. We're going to get along really great. So what I'm going to do is what's called mentalism, and it looks like psychic. It looks like I'm a mind reader, but what I'm actually doing is using my 5 senses to create the illusion of a 6th sense. So I use verbal communication, nonverbal communication, perceptual manipulation, and some downright trickery to accomplish this stuff. All right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to project a thought from my mind into your mind. All right? Now to do this, everyone put your feet flat on the floor. You don't need to take notes here. Feet flat on the floor, take a deep breath. Okay, good. Perfect. And let it out slow. Excellent. All right, now the first thing we're going to project is a picture because our minds think in pictures. So for example, if I were to say the words Dolly Parton to you, what are the first 2 things that pop into your mind, right? Right? So we think think in pictures. All right. So I want you to imagine that there's a movie screen up in front of you, and I'm going to send you 2 simple geometric symbols, one inside the other, like a square with something else inside. But obviously, don't think of a square because since I mentioned it, okay? So when I snap my fingers, think of 2 simple geometric symbols, one inside the other. Okay, by a show of hands, how many people got a triangle and a circle? Raise your hand. Raise your hand really high. Keep your hands up. How many of you got a triangle inside a circle? Keep your hands up. Or how many got the reverse of it? How many people got at least one of them right? Raise your hand. Look around the room. As Dan would say, look more around the room. Almost 100%. So how does that actually work? Well, I'm going to teach it to you so you can actually do it. All right? It is, as Dan called, a force. And it's forced in 2 ways. Right? So the first way it's forced is with my language. This is the verbal part of communication. This is a verbal part of persuasion. I said I want you to think of 2 simple, and I emphasized simple, geometric symbols, right? Then I said like a square with something else inside, but obviously don't think of a square because I already mentioned it. Well, I've just eliminated the square, right? So now you could think of a star, you could think of, the only way to think of something like a trapezoid, though, if you weren't following instructions, right? And so it was not a simple geometric symbol. So that's the verbal part. So I narrowed down what you can actually think of. Now, there's still a wide range. So how do I get almost 100% of the people to get it? Well, watch, you'll recall I did this. Let's replay. I want you to think of 2 simple geometric symbols, one inside the other. When I came out, my first thing I said to you, yeah, you can clap for that. That's good. It's pretty cool. Thank you. In fact, I did it right when I came out. I'm going to send a thought from my mind into your mind. All right? So the combination, right, the combination of the 2 things, verbal and nonverbal, you actually plant a thought in someone's mind. Now let's go to something that's more difficult. All right? I'm going to try to project to you a 4-digit number. Right? A 4-digit number. Now, because you're probably new at this mind reading stuff, by the way, what's your name, sir? Scott. That's correct. Scott, It's a gift, Scott. I want you to really concentrate here, okay? So I'm going to try, since you're new at this stuff, I am going to project it in two pieces. So I'm going to do the first two, then the second two, we'll put them together, okay? So, and because you're new at this, let me think of the number. Okay, got it. All right. I'm going to give you a couple guidelines. First, all right, I can tell you that both digits are odd. Okay, both digits are odd. So we're going to do the first two numbers first. Okay, so a two-digit number, both digits are odd, and they are different. So, for example, 11 wouldn't work, right? But 15 would work, 19 would work. That makes sense? Okay, so make that movie screen in your mind when I snap my fingers. Good. How many of you got the number 37? Raise your hand. Raise your hand really high. Raise your hand high. Okay, good. Now let's try something even more difficult. Let me think of a number. Okay. This time it's going to be a two-digit number between 50 and 100. Both digits will be even, and once again, they'll be different. Okay? Two-digit number, both digits even, and again, different. Okay? So concentrate. Okay, by a show of hands, how many people got the number 68? Raise your hand. Okay, look around the room. Look around the room. How many people got it 86? How many people got 86? Almost 100% of the room. Crazy, right? Not really. Not really. So let's review what I just did there. All right? So I said I'm going to project you a four-digit number, which I actually didn't do. I actually projected two two-digit numbers. All right? And then the first thing that I did, by the way, I'm teaching you like real secrets here. The first thing that I did is I said, okay, I'm going to think of a number. Well, the number I always project is 37. All right? So no matter, I act like I'm thinking of the number, but it's always 37, and here's why. Because, again, I use language to plant a thought in your head and force you to think of what I want you to think of. So I say it's a two-digit, it's a